Good morning and welcome to Paradise Church. My name is David Anderson and I am the pastor here. And we're excited that you are joining us online this week and throughout the month of July. During the month of July, we have a number of key leaders that are going to be out. I'm going to be out the entire month, but more importantly, those who run the live stream, who are way more important than I am, they're also going to be out. One of them is actually getting married, so we could not ask him to continue the duties of the live stream and try to manage through his wedding. So the whole month of July, what we're going to do is, if you are choosing to attend our services in person, we're only having one service. It's the 10 a.m. service, and that's going to be in our sanctuary. So we're not going to have our 8 o'clock service or our 11:15 contemporary service. But if you're watching us online, what we're going to do is we're going to rebroadcast our series called Heaven from last year. And it was one of the most powerful series that we have done, and I'm excited really to be able to go through it again. So we're going to broadcast those messages. But if you want the full sort of immersive experience, if you did not join us last year, we're going to have all of the materials from last year still going to be available. They're on our website. You can still find all the Heaven series materials. It's on a little tab drop down that is entitled Heaven. It has our videos that went along with the book that we read. We read a book called Imagine Heaven. If you want a copy of that, you can pick that up from Amazon. But there are interviews of some of the people that we read about in that book that are going to be on that page as well. So all the 5 weeks of July, we're going to have a message about heaven, but also we'll have some of those videos available for you as well. So all that stuff's going to be available to you on the website. Please feel free to make use of all that. And even if you were here last year, you're really going to enjoy going through this material again. So we do thank you for all of that. A couple of things I wanted to say just in terms of announcements. If you are in Louisville and you drive past the building, you're going to see we still have our Stuff the Bus campaign going on. Throughout the month of July, we're still collecting school supplies for students in Louisville that are in need this coming fall. And so we're trying to get as many school supplies in that bus as we possibly can. And so you're welcome to bring those to the church office. If you want to simply make a donation for us to be able to do some of that work, you can visit our website, which is paradisechurch.org. If you go to the giving tab, you can drop down, and there's an option for you to give to the Stuff the Bus campaign there as well. One important thing that I do want to mention, at the end of June, we did as a congregation vote on a direction for our bell tower campaign, and all of that information is going to be on our website, but it's also going to be in an email that we're going to send out to you as well. Different ways for you to follow up what sort of the next step is now that we've decided the direction that we're going in. This is where we're going to go from this point on. So be looking for that. One of the reasons that we are revisiting the Heaven series from last year is that we do have an event that we're planning in the month of October. Sunday, October 2nd, we're going to have a movie night. And we're going to be showing a movie called The Case for Heaven. And we're really looking forward to that. And there's going to be sort of a fun night we have planned. In one part of the building, we're going to show the movie, The Case for Heaven, for adults. And in another part of the building, we're going to show the Minions movie for kids. Now, some of the adults may want to come down and watch the Minions movie. That's up to you. But we're going to have just a fun evening planned for adults and children and everyone in between. And so that was sort of our thought, is to go back through the Heaven material to get us ready for this event in the fall. And you'll be hearing more about that. You'll see more on that on our website and in some of the emails that you'll be receiving throughout the summer. But again, we do hope that you enjoy the rebroadcast of this series. And I'm going to ask you personally, keep me in prayer over the summer. Keep those who are out over the summer as well. That we would just have just a restful and recuperative season in July, we're really looking forward to what is coming in August. When we come back in August 7th, we're starting a new series called Elijah. And you'll see a little preview of that in this video as well as we enter into August and get ready for the fall. Have a wonderful summer, and I look forward to seeing all of you back in person or online live in the month of August. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God. We are in this series in August, and August is an interesting month. If you are a parent, if you have done any time in education, I was in schools for about 10 years, and there's a certain life cycle. Basically, it's August to June, and there's the teacher life cycle, there's the farming life cycle, all that. But August tended to always have sort of this sort of bittersweet feeling. June was sort of the end of things, the accomplishments and your graduations and awards, and we've come to the completion of things. And August sort of has that next chapter feel to it. July, fortunately, sits in the middle, and it's kind of the month of nothing or vacation. Gives you a chance to really gear up for what's coming. But August is sort of this transition month, and so I want to talk a little bit about some of that today. If you have raised children, you understand the different things that August brings, and particularly if you have had a child that goes off to college or the military or perhaps marriage or something along those lines. But August tends to be a month of saying goodbye. And I've seen this a number of times, and so we're in a blended family. I have 3 adult children who have already left. I have my oldest daughter. She lives in Columbus. She's married. And my oldest son, he is in Ranger School right now. He just found out on Friday he has gone from phase 1 to phase 2. He was in the mountain phase, and now he's going to, I guess, what they call the swamp phase. I don't know what all that means, but he was in the mountains of Dahlonega, Georgia, and now they have shipped him down to, I guess, the Everglades, and I just hope he doesn't get eaten by a croc or anything like that, or alligator. So he'll be graduating in August, and he'll be graduating on August 27th. So I'm gonna actually go down. It's on a Friday. I'm gonna be able to celebrate with him. My next oldest son he's in Hungary. He's been in Hungary. He's not like I'm hungry. He's in Hungary near Budapest. He's going to be there for 9 months. He's been there for a few weeks, and so he's sending us pictures back and all that. But we're in a blended family, and so Misty, as most of you know, we are getting Cole ready to go to Youngstown State. He's going in just under 2 weeks, and so there is so much activity that is going on, and it's hard watching her go through that. And if you've gone through this before, the months before your first child goes off to college, every day. I don't know how she sleeps. I don't know how anybody slept. You got stuff going on. He just this past weekend he purchased his first car. Paid $1,200 for a little beat up something, but it's going to be something that takes him back and forth to school. And he's talking to his roommate. Misty's very concerned. Have you spoken to the roommate? And Cole's like, no, you don't talk to them. You just say hi. Okay? Like, well, you don't know where he's from. You don't know what his hobbies are. Like, no, Mom, you do that later. And he is going to be in the band. He's going to be in the marching band at Youngstown State. So he's excited about all of that. And just the transition of saying goodbye. Just be able to watch her. I already kind of know. I've got a plan. There's the day before we leave. There's the day we get there. There's the travel up. There's the travel back. There's the day after that. I have a whole. There's like a biometric meter that I'm going to watch the whole time. But what's interesting is the emotions that she's going through, what she is going to go through, are familiar. We all know them. We understand that. We understand the power of transition. We understand how hard it is to let go. We know very well, unfortunately, we know very well in our community what it means to lose, what loss is, what it means to say goodbye. And that's what I want to spend a little bit of time talking about today. As we mentioned last week, my hope for you is to build your hope during this month. It's more than simply asking or answering trivia questions or when's this going to happen or what's this going to look like or anything like that. It is about the idea of instilling hope inside of us. Hope is the sign of a heart that is fully alive. But there's different kinds of hope. I mean, there's hope that is kind of waning and foolish. I mean, I guess, I hope for different things. As I mentioned last week, I hope for all kinds of things with Detroit sports that never really happen, okay? That's where I grew up. And so, it's easy for me. My seasons always end usually a lot faster than other sports teams, so I can watch with enjoyment that way. But our hopes, what is it that you truly hope for? Peter, in his letter, he writes 2 letters in the New Testament. In 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, he writes this phrase. He says, "But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect." That's an interesting idea. That is an interesting idea. Peter is saying, hey, you need to be ready to give an answer when people come to you and they ask, hey, how do you have this hope? Where did you get that? How are you able to look at this situation with hope? And we as God's people, we as the redeemed, you have something that the world does not have. And when they come to you and they ask, hey, how are you getting through this? How are you making it through? How do you have hope? What Peter is saying is be ready to give that answer, because that's what people are looking for. Even as hard and as painful and as difficult as some seasons in our life have been, you still have something that others do not. You still have something to offer them. And that hope, as we mentioned last week in Hebrews chapter 6, verse 19, this hope is a strong and trustworthy anchor for our souls. It leads us through the curtain into God's inner sanctuary. It is this hope that's going to lead us from this place to the next. It is this hope that makes us shine. So when was the last time anyone asked you about the reason that you have hope? Now, as we mentioned last week, there's this idea of the renewal of all things. When the disciples asked Jesus, they were looking for reward and they were looking for all that. And Jesus says, when the renewal of all things takes place, that becomes the anchor for their soul. And it's an anchor for ours as well. Now, I don't want to, it's a beautiful day, and I don't want to take us down a dark path, but I do want to sort of start with this idea. It is kind of hard to fathom, but ultimately, we will say goodbye to everyone we love and everything we hold dear. We will say goodbye to everything. The feeling that Misty is going to have, that I'm going to have in about 2 weeks as we're saying goodbye, that's a temporary goodbye. I'm sure he'll be home way sooner than we probably plan on it, okay? But that feeling of saying goodbye, we're all on some level, at some point in our lives, we're going to say goodbye to everyone and everything we hold dear. And I checked the numbers this morning. They were just updated. 1 out of every 1 person will die. Okay, those are the latest numbers. Okay? Yet, as we understand that, and as we're made for that, what we do as human beings, even those of us who are believers, we still try to grasp at every possible means to prevent what we know is inevitable. And our lives, unfortunately, are found with us investing in counterfeits, distractions, rather than the hope that Peter and John and Jesus speak about. As we said last week, nothing is lost. Nothing is lost. Everything that is broken will be fixed. Everything that has been torn apart will be put back together. That is the hope that Jesus puts in front of the disciples. Everything that you have given up will be restored to you. And that is our hope this morning. And I want you to take a moment and allow that to really sink in. What is the most difficult part of that for us to believe? And it's my hope that over the next few weeks is that God will continue to reveal to you that this is true. Now, I want to go back through the reading that Denny read, and I'm going to read it in a different version. In Romans chapter 8, it says, "That's why I don't think there's any comparison between the present hard times and the coming good times. The created world itself can hardly wait for what's coming next. Everything in creation is being more or less held back. God reins it in until both creation and all the creatures are ready and can be released at the same moment into the glorious times ahead. Meanwhile, the joyful anticipation deepens." The very idea of anticipation, the very idea of building excitement towards something is a gift that God gives to us. It is a preview of something. There are plenty of things that you have gone towards that you anticipate to be good. There's a buildup, okay? Some of us in this room, we are anticipating the football season. Some of you are anticipating a Browns season that is good. Everybody's, they're going to be so good this year. And so there's anticipation for all of that, okay? I am a self-confessed geek. I look for all things Star Wars and superheroes. Every time there's a new movie or a new series that comes out, I approach it with anticipation. Okay, just to know that this Friday a new superhero movie is going to come out. It's basically going to be the same thing I've always watched. They're going to take my $10 every 2 months anyways. But I anticipate that. And you have to watch it on Friday because the rest of the geeks, if you don't, they're going to spoil all the spoilers on Saturday. So all geeks have to be in one place at the same time to watch the movie. This little inside thing. But anticipation is something that God gives to each of us. There's a building excitement. There's a building energy towards the end of the story. Every good story that you've ever read, every good movie that you've ever watched, there is a building. There's a building. It's that word climax that we are all designed for. And it's sort of amazing is that your story is moving in that same way. There is an anticipation that is building. Paul talks about this idea that creation is subjected to frustration. And I want you to sort of envision what this world would be like, what your world would be like if you were not bound by the frustration any longer. All the wonderful places in your world, all the wonderful memories, all the things that you consider to be great, along with it becomes frustration. If you've ever had a dream home, okay, that's a beautiful idea. Well, dream homes require work. Okay? If any of you have ever had a dream car, well, that dream car is going to take a lot of your time and energy and work. Okay? If any of you have ever owned a boat, someone once told me that the two best days for a boat owner are the day you purchase your boat and the day you sell your boat. Okay? But there's always work that goes with it. So even in our best dreams, there is sort of this sense of frustration. Okay? To have a lawn that looks amazing, okay, that requires work. Imagine a world where the frustrations that come with that are no longer there. As I said, we're standing at the edge of loss all the time. We are always standing in this place. We are hearing bad news, and sometimes, or at least we've gotten to a point where we hear bad news and it's shocking. For many of us, we're kind of used to it by now. It sort of comes with the territory. Some of us have been jaded so poorly that we just kind of wake up with the what's going to happen today mentality. We have lost spouses. We've lost parents. We've lost children. In our community alone, we're still reeling from loss, whether it comes from a car wreck, COVID, childhood cancer. We understand what loss is all about. And you can either allow it to be this sort of dark close, or maybe that's not the whole story. Unless the scriptures declare something else to be true, that this life is not the end, it is just the beginning. And in fact, what we are living in is a muted, sort of black and white, two-dimensional comparison to the real, vibrant, multidimensional life that is to come, where relationships do not end, but become what they were always intended to be. Now, some of you in this room, you may remember this moment, okay? There was a moment when black and white television turned to color, okay? You remember this. You know, I watched on reruns, and I'm saying on reruns. You know, I'm a baby compared to many of you in this room. But like seasons, like the first season of Gilligan's Island was in black and white. Most people don't realize that. Bewitched. How many of you used to watch the show Bewitched? Some of those seasons were in black and white. And then they came out with color. Not just color, it was Technicolor. You know. And there was probably a moment where either you or you were the child of somebody said, hey, we need to get a color television. Maybe there was a dad like, no, we don't need a color television. My black and white TV is just fine the way it is. But as you start to think about what is sort of the next thing, imagine it. Imagine where you are right now. It is black and white, and you are about to step out of the house where Dorothy flies to Kansas, and you see color for the very first time. I want us to look a little closer at what Scripture tells us. Now, this past Tuesday, and if you missed Tuesday, and again, what we're doing on Tuesdays, we're looking at some of these interviews of the people in the book, and we looked at Dr. Mary Neal. She was a spine surgeon from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. She did not need to make up anything. Her life did not gain anything from making up a story. Yet, through a kayaking accident, she was dead and drowned for 30 minutes. And what she describes this sort of welcoming committee that comes up to her. And really, she describes sort of this, I'm sort of peering in and looking at things and just sort of seeing this activity that's going on. There were people busy doing things. She felt safe. She felt an undescribable kind of love. Now, it's important to realize that she comes back. I mean, you know, each of these stories, we're not trying to necessarily build a theology on what this one person experienced, what this one person experienced. No, but we're trying to take all of those stories and see what we can glean from that. We're not trying to overgeneralize or anything like that. But there is some clear things that come. And one was that what Dr. Mary Neal and what others described, it was a reunion like no other. That there was a reunion like no other. Now, I know that's sort of people's first concern. When we start talking about heaven, we mentioned this a little bit last week. We think about heaven. We talk about, there's an old hymn, I'll fly away. Okay? Well, there's something to that that's comforting, but it's also this sort of disturbing idea. I'm with everyone that I love, and I'm going to fly away. I want to be away. I'm going to be away from the people. I'm going to be away. I'm going to go to a different place. And that doesn't always bring comfort. When we think of heaven, maybe you think of ghostly, sort of wispy, ethereal kinds of people. Maybe it feels less tangible and less real than this life. But what you should know from the New Testament is this: is that is not the way Jesus describes it. That is not the way that he describes it to his followers. On the night before he was crucified, as we talked about communion last week, he says this to his disciples: "Do not let your heart be troubled. Trust in God and trust also in me. There is more than enough room in my Father's house. If this were not so, would I have told you? But I'm going to prepare a place for you where everything is ready. I will come and get you, so that you will always be with me where I am." Jesus indicates that heaven is relational, where people are together again. Friends and loved ones are reunited. Now we fear that we will not be our full selves when we get to the other side, that it will simply be just, again, this sort of ghost thing. But what is clear from Scripture and what is clear from each of the near-death experiences that we've been looking at is that you have never felt so yourself or so alive as when you shed this earthly body. Not only will we be free of the pains and worries of this earthly body, we will feel young again. Those of you who have trouble hearing me, we will feel young again. You could say amen to that. Okay, there we go. Okay, do you remember what it was like to have the endless energy of a child? Do you remember what it was like to have the energy of a teenager? Okay, how many of you woke up this morning with just a little achy thing, like maybe a shoulder or a knee? You thought maybe it's going to rain today because I got a bunion that's going, there's something. We all have those things, I call it the wake-up alarm. When I roll out of bed, there's sort of this moan like, just trying to get up. Now, when I was on vacation last week, one of the tests of strength that I always have to endure, I'm the father of wrestlers, and I have to wrestle. And the older I get, that's getting more of a challenge. And that's what the boys look for every time they get around me. And so I'm very afraid that my Ranger son's going to come back. He's going to get a medal. He's going to get all these different accolades. And all he's going to want to do after that is, right, Dad, go put your shorts on. We got to go outside. We were actually running in Florida, and I know I was on vacation, but I still ran. And I was with my brother Jeremy. And the moment you step outside in Florida and start running, it's just like a faucet. You're just drenched. But we were with James, who's getting ready to start his senior year, and he is pretty much at the level of Adonis right now. He's got this flowing, way too long, but it's this flowing Goldilocks thing going on. He is cut and chiseled and all of that. And so we're running, and we feel good. I mean, Jeremy and I were doing well. He is the one who has run with me on all of my marathons. He's sort of my crutch. He could leave me well behind, but he stays with me, so he keeps me going. But we're doing good. We're flying. We're doing like an 11-minute pace, 10.5-minute pace per mile. And then James, he's so kind. He basically says, "Hey, I'm going to run up a little bit, and then I'm going to come back." And so we go on this sort of 4-mile course, and James would constantly leave us, basically run a half mile up, and then catch up to us. And it was like an accordion. He'd run up to this light and run to this corner. So we did 4 miles, which we thought was amazing. All in told, James probably did more like 8 because he kept sort of leaving us and going back. And I kept thinking, man, wouldn't that be amazing just to have that again? Imagine a new body that feels even better than that. Scripture tells us that for all creation is waiting eagerly for the future day when God will reveal who his children really are. And Jesus also says, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these." What if we're going to feel like kids again, with all that energy and excitement of life? Marv Besteman, a retired bank president, had surgery at the University of Michigan Medical Center to remove a rare pancreatic tumor. He died. He was later revived. He said, "The angels gathered me in their arms, and we began to ascend on a quick journey that felt light and smooth through the bluest of blue skies. I was deposited on solid ground in front of a monumental gate, and no, I don't remember it as being pearly. Standing in a short line of people, I observed the other 35 or so other heavenly travelers, people of all nationalities. Now, some of you got distracted when I said there's a line in heaven. Okay, for a banker, lines in heaven are probably his heaven. I mean, he'd probably enjoy. It was a short line. Okay. But Marv continues, some were dressed in what I thought were probably the native costumes of their lands. One man carried a baby in his arms. I saw color bursts that lit up the sky way beyond the northern lights I had seen once on a trip to Alaska. Simply glorious. The music I heard was incomparable to anything I had ever heard before. These are his words. He says, my old geezer body felt young and strong and fantastic. The aches and pains and the limitations of age were just gone. I felt like a teenager again, only better. But that doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, most of life is a long, slow warning as your body slowly sags, decays, aches, and reminds you that it's not going to last. So live the life to come. But what kind of body will we have? What will it feel like? Jesus, after the resurrection, at the end of the Gospel of John, shows up and surprises the disciples in a number of different ways. He says, why are you frightened, he asks. Why are your hearts filled with doubt? Look at my hands, look at my feet. You can see that it's really me. Touch me and make sure that I am not a ghost, because ghosts do not have bodies, as you see that I do. Then he asked them, do you have anything here to eat? They gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he ate it as they watched. Could you imagine watching Jesus eating a piece of fish after the resurrection? Jesus could be physically touched. He could eat fish. He walked down the Emmaus Road. He didn't float like Casper. He talks with the disciples in his resurrected body. He appears just as on earth, yet he could also display the spiritual body's shining brilliance. Paul and John both speak of him as being more brilliant than the sun. Paul asks and addresses this question, the idea of what kind of bodies we will have. There are also bodies in the heavens and bodies on the earth. The glory of the heavenly bodies is different from the glory of the earthly bodies. And when you sort of take everybody, when you take 1st and 2nd Corinthians, when you take other writings of Paul, when you get into the book of Revelation, when you sort of try to line it all up, some of it gets a little confusing, a little discombobulated. And basically what it sort of looks like is that you are version 1.0 right now. You are version 1.0. The moment that you die, you become version 2.0. And then there is this point where sort of the spirit and the earthly body are reintroduced to each other. At the end of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, Paul talks about this. And then there's sort of like a 3.0 version of that. Doctors like Richard Eby seemed to notice more about the body. Richard Eby and his wife were helping clean out a relative's Chicago apartment. Richard leaned against a second-story railing to drop boxes down. He did not know that termites had destroyed the wood anchoring the railing. The railing gave way. Richard plunged 2 stories to the cement sidewalk below, head first. Dr. Eby recalls, the eggshell of my skull completely broke apart and broke the large blood vessel in my brain. I was dead on impact. He miraculously revived in the morgue. While dead, Dr. Eby noticed I was the same size, the same shape as the person I had seen in the mirror for years. I was clothed in a translucent flowing gown, pure white, but transparent to my gaze. And Jesus describes this in the book of Revelation. Those that walk with me dressed in white, for they are worthy. The one who is victorious will, like them, be dressed in white. I will never blot out the name of the person from the book of life, but will acknowledge the name before my Father and his angels. Whoever has ears, let them hear.
Do we have a soul that survives our physical demise? It was the most ambitious investigation of my life. Can near-death experiences tell us anything reliable about life after death? And why should we trust what Jesus tells us about heaven and about hell?
Jesús dice, yo soy el camino, la verdad y la vida.
They are trying to find some way to live on beyond their death. They're running out of time.
The whole point of the resurrection is that I wouldn't have to fear it in a sense of, oh no, what's going to happen next?
I didn't really care whether I was going to heaven or hell.
I have absolutely no idea what happens after we die.
There's something that it is to be us. There's something that it is like to be you.
When we die, we leave our natural bodies, but we're still ourselves. It's life on steroids. It's life beyond anything we've experienced.
If that typewriter could magically send a message to young Lee that started here, what would you tell him?
Oh, man, I think I'd say, keep seeking. The truth is out there. This is my case